Okay, Daf Hashavua Moed Katan. Daf Vav Amud Aleph is what we should be up to for Daf Hashavua. The thing is that the last Daf Hashavua share on Hamid Bays was cut short by a fire drill. We're just going to finish the bottom of Hamid Bays, try to do the whole Daf Vav Amud Aleph. Just want to mention one thing. While I was chazering over Shavuos, the 5-blot bechina of Daf Hashavua, I noticed I learned the bottom line on Hamid Aleph. I learned the Gemara a word wrong. It says, Rabbi Yanai, the bottom line, Havaleahu Talmida. He had a Talmud, a student. The Chol Yom Avi Makshele. Every day he would ask him questions. The Shabbata, the Regila, Lo Avi Makshele. On Shabbos, when people would come, a lot of people, you didn't want to embarrass them by asking them a hard question, so you didn't ask them. Now, I translated the Regila, where a lot of people were rugil. A lot of people would come, but that's not pshat. Pshat is the Shabbos of the regel, when it would be Shabbos of regel, I think. Look at Taisus. Shabbos shel yoyim haregel. That's how Taisus says. Rashi just says Shabbos the Regila probably also means that, even though he doesn't say Mishum Dasi Kuliyam Lapirka, means the Shabbos of regel. Okay. So we were up to when we got cut off, we were on Hamid Bays, where the Gemara says that, let's just make sure my mic is on. Yeah. We were on Hamid Bays where it says, the Gemara had Akasha, the Sada Shenechash Bakever Beis HaPras Karile, is the Sada Shenechash Bakever. Is that called the Beis HaPras, like 2/3 of the way down? Right? Beis HaPras Karile says Gemara in. Yes, it is. Vatanan, and we learned in the Mishnah Shleisha Beis HaPras. There are 3 types of Beis HaPras: Sada Sheneva Bakever, Sada Shenechash Bakever, Ustei Beichen. We were explaining what Stei Beichen was. My Stei Beichen, a Sada of crying. Rabbi Shua Barabba Mishmei Dula Amar Sada Shemaftirim B'Mason. When someone would bring a mace from a different city to be buried in a second city, so they used to meet in a certain field, and they called it the Stei Beichen, the field of crying, because when they would part from each other, they would be crying because they would be leaving their mace. What happened was that these 2 groups, they would then prepare the mace. The second group would prepare the mace for Taira, for the Kvura, but they would assume that the first set of people had everything set up good and didn't drop any bones, because there were no refrigerators and there would be bones there. They weren't fully intact. And the first group who dropped bones, or they didn't, assume the second group would take care. And each one was dependent on the other. Why were there bones in this field? Because they each gave up because they were depending on the other set of people. And basically what the Gemara is saying now is that a sada shenechash bakever, where a grave was plowed up, doesn't need a tzion. It doesn't need a marker, because since the bones become crushed, they become so little, so they're not going to be tamei. There's not going to be tumas oil. The tumah doesn't go up, so when you step over it, you won't become tamei. It only becomes tamei if you touch it. So therefore, what you could do is you could just bend down and blow the bones as you go through the field. So frak the Gemara v'sada shenechash bakever leiboy tzion doesn't need tzion. V'tani, we learned in a brisa matzah sada mitzuyenes. If you found a field that had a symbol, a sign on it that there was a kever there, then you do a mativa, you don't know what it is. So the brisa says yesh bilanois, if there's trees, v'yadua shenechash bakever, we know that it was nechash bakever, that there must have been a grave there that was plowed up, because in order to have trees growing there, you need to plow up the land. Ein ba'ilanis, but if there's no trees, biyadua she'avad bakever. If there's no trees, you know it's just avad bakever. Rabbi Yehuda adds a point. He says that Ashi Yisham Zaken Talmud, that you don't assume that it was nechash bakever until it doesn't say exactly what Rabbi is going on, but I think from Davav Madalv it sounds like that it's going on nechash bakever, that you don't assume it was nechash bakever lekula unless a zaken or Talmud are going to tell you have a zaken, an old man there, or a Talmud Chacham that tells you that yes, the kever was plowed up, then you could, even though there's trees there, you don't assume unless they tell you. Not everyone knows exactly how to tell, and the halachos involved. They don't take it as to heart. But you see from this brisa that even a sada shenechash b'kever, even a sada that's plowed over, that a kever is plowed over, it says straight out that you found it mitzuyenes. You found that it had a marker on it. So you see that a nechash b'kever has a marker. It's talking about that the sada was originally of a b'kever, ditzainua, and then they put a marker. But then yesh beilanis, if you find trees there, biyadua, you know shenechash b'kever, that it was also plowed afterwards. Yesh beilanis biyadua shenechash b'kever, ain't beilanis, but if there's no trees, biyadua she'ava b'kever, you know that it was just ava b'kever. So the question was, why was there a tzion? Why was there a marker there? We said there's no marker by nechash b'kever because you don't need a marker. So the Gemara's answer, you're right. The marker was put there when it was only ava b'kever, when the kever was lost. And then subsequently, if we see trees there, we know that it was also nechash b'kever. And therefore, you're right, the marker won't be needed then. Frek the Gemara, wait a minute. Even when there's trees there, maybe the trees are toward the inside of the area. The kever mevroi, and the kever was on the outside of those trees. So even though it was nechash b'kever, the kever's on the outside, and you still need the sienna, and you still can't walk through. How could you assume that it was nechash b'kever and you're allowed to walk through with your truma? Maybe the kever is further back behind the trees and was never plowed up. Says the Gemara, Kedamar Ula, like Ula said in a different place, that it's talking about the trees are on the perimeter of the area of the Sada. Al-Khanami, in our case also, it's talking about must be when the trees are on the perimeter, but of course, if it's not, you're right, it would be a problem. You wouldn't be able to go through with your truma. But maybe the tumah is all the way on the inside, and the trees now are on the outside. So how could you assume that you could go through with your truma by getting down on all fours and blowing and making sure that you're not touching any of the little pieces of bones? Maybe the kever was on the very inside of the sada and it was never plowed in the first place because the trees are on the perimeter. And for the Gemara, and it's talking about it's scattered trees all over. It says Rashi, it's not in one place at the perimeter. It's mu'urav in the whole sada. We said that you're not supposed to move the tzion. We said on Daf Hey that you don't move the tumah far away from you don't put the tzion. When you want to put a marker that there's a kever there, you don't move it too far away from the kever. Because if you keep it too far away from the kever, let's say this is the kever, and then you have it, and you put the markers 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet, and 10 feet, or 100 feet on each side, then people are not going to go with their truma on these places. So says the Gemara, so therefore here also, it's talking about that we know that the kever is not in the middle of the field because the tzion, the marker, was close to the trees. Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara continues to explain the end of the brisa. It says, Rabbi Yehuda, that you can't assume that it was nechash b'kever unless there's a zaken or a talmid chacham that tells you about that it was nechash b'kever. Because not everyone are bucky in these things. We see from this tzuvim rabbanon the ika b'masa, that when you have a talmid chacham in the city, kol mili d'masa aleh ramya, all the necessary things of the city is incumbent on him to notice and know about, and he knows about these things, and that's why you could ask him. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, amatzav mitzuyenes. If you find one rock, a rock is high up. So if you find a rock that's mitzuyenes, that has a marker, that has lime on it, poured on it, tachtel tameh, under this tameh, even though we said, Rashi explains from his Rebbe, even though what? We explained that when you have when you have a tumah, let's say this is the tumah, make sure you don't pour the sid, the lime, the marker right next to the kever, because then someone comes with the truma, they step on the lime and they already stepped on the tumah. You have to set it back a little bit. But the Gemara is now saying, but when it comes to if the marker is an even, it's taller, it's not just on the ground, so that when a person comes toward it, they could see that there's an even there with lime on it, which is white, and that would remind them about the bones. So even mitsuyanes taftel tummy, under it is tummy, and therefore if you end up touching it or stepping over that area, you're going to be tummy. Shtayim. If let's say you have two stones, right? You have one here and one here, and you have the lime on both of them. So we know under both. So im yesh sid beineim, if there's also lime in between the two, beineim tummy, in between is tummy. The main sid beineim, if there's no lime in between the two, there's no marker in between the two also, beineim tar, in between is tar, even though under the two rocks are going to be tummy, in between are going to be tar. The afagav the lekach, correct the Gemara, it comes out that the Gemara holds now that as long as there's lime in between, that there's no lime in between, it is tar in between. Correct the Gemara, afagav the lekach, even if it's not plowed there, plowing makes no difference. So, and therefore, if it doesn't matter if it's plowed there, and it just matters if there's sid there, then it's tummy in between. If there's no sid there, then it's not tummy. If there's sid in between, the reason the guy did that was there's bodies or there's tumah all over. So he just made two stones, and then he put sid across to know, like you have like a caution tape going across. Even though it wasn't plowed up, there's no difference about being plowed. I will learn in the Brisa that it all depends on plowing. Vatanya, Motza even achas mitzuyenes. If you found one rock that has its tzion, taftel tummy, under its tummy. Shtaim, if you found two, im yesh charish beineim, if it's plowed in between, beineim tar. Then we know in between is tar because it was, even if there was something tummy, there was nechrash. V'im lav beineim. V'im lav beineim, v'im lav, and if it wasn't charish in between, beineim tamei. If it wasn't plowed, v'im lav beineim tamei, in between is tamei, because he means to put one rock here, and there to be tamei in. So you're telling me that if there's no sit in between, you're not tamei, even if it's not charush. The Brisa says you are going to be tamei. Amar Papa. Sid was poured onto the rock, al Rashem, on the head of one rock, and then it like dripped off, and it would drip. You see it dripped from one rock to the other rock. So that's why if it's plowed in between beineim tar, then we could assume that when he plowed it, so he peeled off some of the sid from the rock. And as he plowed it, some of the sid came across to the other rock, but really there's no tumah there, right? If you plowed, so the sid that's in between came because you plowed from one stone to another. The aimer, we could say machmas charishu de ikfal, because of the charisha, because of the plowing, it peeled off the Eli. But if there's no plowing, sid the beni, the drippings of sid the beni, it wasn't just drippings. It means that he meant to put sid in between the tummy and your tummy. Amar Avasi says, let's say you have like a field. In those times when they had a field, so they used to have the boundary of the field would be lifted up a little bit. So it would have the benefit of a rock. A rock that's lifted up, we know that under the rock, if there's sid, under the rock is tummy. If you just find sid on the floor, we know you have a little bit more space forward before it becomes tummy. But when you have the boundary of the field was lifted up. So says the Gemara, Amar Avasi, Meitzar Echad Mitsuyim. Meitzar Echad Mitsuyim. If you found one boundary of the field has four boundaries. If you find one boundary, Mitsuyan, with sid on it, Hu Tameh, Chalasad the Kulatar. Under that boundary is Tameh, but the rest of the field is tar because he has the mace under that boundary. Shnayim, if you have two of the four boundaries with sid, haim tameim, there tamei v'chol asad the kula Torah. The rest of the field is Torah. Shloisha, if you have 3 boundaries, haim tameim, there tamei v'chol asad the kula Torah, and the rest of the field is Tar. But arba, if you have 4 boundaries, then we assume that he was just making the sit around the boundary to say that the whole field is tamei, but really under the boundary is not. Tahirin, under the boundary is okay. The chol asad the kula tameya, and the rest of the field is tamei. Damar mar, because Mar says, "Ein marchikin siyam mimakam tama." You don't make it too far away from the makam of tama. When you make the tzion, not too far away. Shalei lahafsid es Eretz Yisrael, so as not to be mafsid Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, says Rashi, Lo chitzayin kol arba mitzarav, and that's why he puts sit around all 4 borders. They call it the nitma. Don't think that you have a little bit of space after the tzion. He did it all around to say that the whole field was tamei. Now Rashi just says, "Ubetzion the meitzar echad loisagi lekula," but he couldn't have just done Rashi has a kasha. So why not just do 1 boundary and let it count for the whole field? It says the ein marchikin siyam makam toma, because that's what the Gemara means when it says ein marchikin. You can't make the tzion too far. Therefore, if he would have just done it on one side, so if there's tumah all the way on the other side of the field, that wouldn't have helped. So I'm sorry. It could be that it's possible in this case that the tumah might not be directly after the boundary. I'm not sure, because it says you are supposed to. Oh no, it is right after, because since it's up a level, not sure. You have to know. The whole reason usually when you have something higher, under it is tamei, is because people could see it from far. But here, he just meant to put it around the boundary to make the whole field tamei. I guess you have to be chayshish that even right after that is tamei. I'm not sure. I think so. The Mishnah says that you go out on Chol Moed, Bezin sends out messengers to check for climb and to rip out the climb in people's fields. Frek the Gemara, 2 dots. Do you go out for climb on Chol Shomoid? We learned, Ramini, I'll ask you a steer. We learned that you go out on Purim, on Tesvav. On Reish Chodesh Adar, you announce that soon we're going to have to give the shekel. And on Klayim, you announce, right? You announce about Klayim to be careful. In the 15th of Adar, and you read the Megillah in the walled cities. And you go out to pick up the thorns on the roads, and to fix the roads so that people could travel well. And to what? And to measure the mikvahs, so that make sure that they're good. You do all the needs of the rabbim. You make sure that all the places where there's graves have signs. And on Tesvav of Adar, you go out on Klayim, Bezdin. So you see that you go out on Tesvav. You don't go out on Chol Moed a month later, Tesvav Nisan. I'm sorry, you don't go out on Chol Moed on Chol Moed. In Nisan, you go out on Tesvav of Adar. Now Rashi has a basic kasha that I'm assuming they'll ask on the Bechina, on the Daf Hashavua Bechina, that the stira this contradiction is not only about Klayim. It says, our Mishnah also says, Rashi says, the rest of the Mishnah, the Tani that we learned, you fix the roads on Chol Moed, the roads of the marketplace and the roads out, the regular roads b'chol Shomoed. And here it says, it says on Tesvav Adar. So why are you only asking a stira contradiction about what? About the Klayim? Says the Gemara, says Rashi, Mishum Delab Pirchu, it's not such a question. The Bedinu de Misakim l'Cheisim. It could be you fix these other things 2 times. The Chimisakim b'Tesvav Adar, even when you fix it on 14th of Adar, the streets, let's say. Asu Geshamim, when we calculate, the rain's going to come and ruin it. Therefore, you fix it again on Chayil Shemayit. But on the Klayim, even the Akru Lugamri, the Chamisha Asu Adar, if you're accurate all on the 15th of Adar, you don't have to go out again. You already took everything out. So the Gemara has two terutzim. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina. Chad Amar kan bebacha, kan ba'avel. One's talking about an early crop, and one's talking about a late crop. By an early crop, you go out on by Purim, and by a late crop, you go out on Nisan. Chad Amar, another teretz, kan bezroim, kan b'yirakas. One's talking about grains, and kan b'yirakas, and one's talking about vegetables, and those have different times, and therefore one is going to be by Purim and one's going to be by Nisan. Says Rashi, which one's which? Bizroim alatfua yotzim pitasva ba'adar shekaymin liyirakas. The Zroim go earlier and the Yirakas are later. Amar Ravasi Rabbi Yochanan loishanu l'sheinitza nikar. The only time you wait until these times is only if the sprouts, the sproutings that come up are not nicker. You don't see the sprouts of the climb. Aval nitza nicker, but when you see the sprouts coming up, yotzin aleim, you go out right then and you fix them then. Why do you have to go on Chol Moed? Why don't you just go right before Yontif, Erev Yontif? Then Afkinan, Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yochanan, because the wages are cheaper, because people are working before Yontif. When a Chol Moed, they're not working, and they can't usually work if not for Bezdin. So therefore, Schar Pulu de Muzikabon, they're willing to work cheaper. We see from here, who pays for the workers? Does Bezdin have to pay when they send out workers to do climb? Or does Bezdin say, why should we have to pay? If we see someone that has climb and he didn't take care of it, we'll send workers and we'll send them the bill. Says the Gemara, no. Shemami, no. We see from here that we're worried about the cheap bill, that we want to keep it cheap, that the labor cheap, that we give the workers the schar from the Chumas Alishka, from the money of the Beis Hamikdash. If we're giving it from the guy who has the climb, from him, we're not going to make a huge deal to worry exactly about the price. If he was Pesheah, he didn't do his job and take out his own climb in his field, we'll give the workers whatever they want. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.